1,217,520 people are affected by gun violence every single year. This epidemic has been controversially debated for many years. Good morning. My name is Daniel Blackman, and my colleagues are Sabrina Lopez, Akshay Panchal, and Jose Fergosa.
And together we have asked the question, to what extent do stricter regulations on automatic firearm availability in the United States affect mass shootings? But to first understand why people have access to firearms in the first place, we must first understand the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which allows people to acquire a firearm if they meet certain requirements. It reads, the right to bear arms as part of a well-regulated militia. This sounds good in paper as it allows people to hold certain self-defense. However, this right has been abused many times throughout history, such as in Columbine shooting of 1999, where two students acquiring two Tech-9 automatic firearms were able to shoot and kill 13 other people and wound 24. This was one of the first mass shootings in the United States history that made it to this high number. And also, this started the very high talk of gun violence and how to prevent it. But even still, to this decade, we still haven't able to do anything about gun violence, such as in the Parklight shooting of 2018, where it still happened again, where a student acquired an AR-15 rifle and shot and killed 17 other people and injured 17 more, and abuse of this right. And even still, these shootings could occur anywhere at any time, including concerts such as the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. This was the most bloody shooting to occur in American history, with 58 deaths and 851 people were injured, and the most number of guns used, including 10 AR-15 rifles, 8 AR-10 rifles, 1 revolver, and 1 knife. The team we found throughout all of these shootings is that every single one included an automatic firearm.
As you can see, the cost of gun violence has reached an astonishing $229 billion. This is in the top 5 billion causes of death and continues to increase every single year. Whenever there's a mass shooting, people tend to look towards political inaction, and the enormous economic cost is often overlooked. There are direct and indirect costs that go towards this amazing bill. Direct costs would include emergency medical care, and indirect costs could include loss of quality of life and loss of wages. This is a big reason why there should be stricter automatic firearm availability. There are also benefits to gun sales. Gun sales create jobs, fund government programs, and increase economic activity. $1.1 billion in taxes was taken from gun sales and given to fund state agencies. This money
Alright, so looking at the political adversities of these gun violence, we can see that there are many different possible solutions to attack the epidemic of gun violence. So one of the first possible solutions that we have is created by the Democratic Party, also known as liberals. And their specific point of view on this issue is that we should ban all guns in the United States no matter what. And the reasoning behind this is that if we ban all guns, then there would be no gun violence. And an excellent example of this is shown here in Australia, where since 1996, when they first imposed strict gun controls, we can see that there has been no mass shootings and the number of gun homicides has decreased tremendously. Another possible perspective is the Republican side, also known as conservatives. From one of their ideology between this can be seen in one of their most famous logos. And their ideology is that there should actually be lesser restrictions on gun violence. And the reason for this is because you can then protect yourself using these guns from any possible harm that you might see. Another possible solution to this issue could be universal background checks, and as a supplement to that, banning all automatic firearms. The reasoning behind universal background checks is to see that anybody who has had a previous criminal history or a previous mental institution have been previously institutionalized in a mental hospital, they are not allowed to get guns. And in the Congress and in society, we can see a direct effect of this, where we can see that the NRA, which is an NGO, which means a non-governmental organization, has contributed millions of dollars to different campaigns along the 2018 election cycle. We can see that in John McCain, who is a Republican, they have donated upwards of almost $8 million, and Richard Burr's campaign, also Republican, they have donated upwards of $7 billion. A common theme we can see is that these are all Republican candidates. As I mentioned before, Republicans stand for lesser gun restrictions on gun control. And this has a direct effect on the amount of guns introduced in Congress, where we can see that in a Democratic legislature, there is almost a 12% or a 62% increase in the amount of gun bills introduced. But if you compare that to a Republican legislature, there's only a 12% after a mass shooting. And what this says that there's a big difference between Republicans and Democrats on the issue of gun violence and the epidemic to how to solve this issue as well.
As previously stated by my colleague Asher Panchal, the ultimate way to decrease gun violence in the United States is by a combination of the Fixed NICS Act of 2017 and Form 4473. This is the ultimate way of ensuring that we strengthen background checks as a supplement to banning automatic firearms. The Fixed NICS, or National Instant Background Check System, Act of 2017 closes the Charleston loophole. The Charleston loophole allows you to get your hands on a firearm automatically after 3 days if the FBI fails to submit your information to the dealer. This loophole is what let Dylan Roof on the upper right corner over there to get his hands on the firearm that killed 9 people in a Charleston church around 3 years ago. By closing this act, federal agencies are left accountable if states fail to submit the proper information into the NICS system. This goes hand in hand with Form 4473. Form 4473 is filed by an individual trying to purchase a gun, and when ran by the dealer, automatically shows a history of past criminal charges, past institutionalization, and mental instability. This is the best way to reduce deaths. The only negative implications to this is that only around 50% of shooters have shown a history of past mental illness, and only 40% have shown a prior history of violence. This means there's still a large number of people unaccounted for. However, this is the most effective, realistic, and bipartisan way of making sure that the epidemic of gun violence in the United States is reduced.
So going back to what Jose said, that a lot of these mass shootings, or every mass shooting that he talked about, included an automatic rifle or an armed automatic weapon, classified as a class 1 through 3 weapon. And all of these weapons were actually acquired legally, which then poses the problem that how can we stop this issue? Then moving on to what Daniel said, that these gun sales are actually a big contributor to America's GDP, where we're making around, and then the cost of this is significant as well, as the US is making $1.1 billion every single year in taxes on gun violence. But then moving on to what Sabrina said, that this is actually the best way, universal background checks and imposing a ban on automatic firearms is actually the best possible way to stop this issue, because it supports both parties, Republican and Democrats alike. As you can see, where it says almost 92% of Americans support gun violence, 89% of Republicans support not gun violence, universal background checks, and 74% of NRA members support universal background checks. So this is the best bipartisan way that we can make sure that we can solve gun violence in the best way, while also making sure that we're protecting the lives of American citizens and keeping their best interests in mind. Thank you. What questions do you have?
All right, thanks guys, and thanks for willing to be the first group. It's always nervous, I know. I'm gonna literally start with Daniel and work my way across. So Daniel, you get the first question. Good morning. Describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of your group discussions.
Well, when we met together, we were more focused on the stricter regulations we were more focused on universal background checks, but we also decided as we met together and through discussions to work on the banning of automatic firearms instead of just universal background checks.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem that you identified?
Akshar's political lens had the greatest impact on our presentation, because without the knowledge of bipartisanism and how both members of the party feel, like Republicans and Democrats feel about our solution, we wouldn't be able to pass the universal background check solution.
Thank you. Jose, in what way did you improve your ability to work with the group as a result of this project?
Well, as a result of this project, I was really able to upgrade my abilities, because I have really developed my ability to communicate with other people and share my ideas and information and thought process. Like, for example, we had opportunities where I had to share an idea that was really difficult to explain such as the universal background check, but really by developing the idea from little steps to big steps, we were really able to communicate such ideas.
Right? And actually, what was the strongest counter argument to your solution that you identified and why?
Excellent question. So the strongest counter argument that we had was definitely located in Sabrina's lens. That going back to our presentation, when she talked about the implications of universal background checks, we can see that universal background checks aren't good predictors of who could be criminals or who could have a past mental illness or who could have a possible mental illness. They were only possible to check who has had one in the past, which is why it's one of the bigger problems of our solutions.
You guys are done. It's pretty